Yeah, I mean, it's very fashionable to say a lot's going on, and people will often look around and say, well, no, I don't see it. But stuff is happening now that people can see. What your audience might not know is that unprecedented Buckingham Palace, which is technically part of Great Britain, but really is like DC, is a separate state. Yeah. But they have to work with a local authority, the local council. And the local council has received an application from Buckingham Palace to do works on the inside, to start knocking walls down. It's never been heard of.
The hallowed ground of Buckingham Palace is now going to be
rad. Amazing. So they're not talking about knocking the building down, but what they're talking about is internally knocking walls down. Now that's, even for people who are totally unaware, that must ring some bells. So that was done on the 21st of January, that application. That's a public document. That's very interesting. So there's that side. On the impending war, it looks like the good guys have put a bit of a hold on it, because President Putin wrote to NATO saying that he was going to give them a further 2 weeks to make their mind up what they wanted to do about Ukraine. Originally, it was going to be the end of January, a few days' time, but clearly the White Hat's not ready for whatever, so they've asked him to kick the can down the road a bit. So that's happened. There's a great deal of happening in your country, on the politics. We've got a state, we've got our fingers crossed, they're going to decertify their election before the end of this month. That will be the first one to decertify a Biden college vote for their state. And when that happens, just watch the others follow suit. And it's not Arizona. And so that's what I'm told. One of the states will decertify the college votes before the end of January. Big, big move.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's hopeful as well. You're like, come on, man, we got to start to see some of those worms turn, if you know what I mean, or some of the gears start to move.
I was on a call with Doug Billings in the right side broadcasting, and he was chatting away that he'd been talking to patriots, and they were all talking about, getting ready for the midterms, which I don't have a problem with. But I do have a problem with the 2024 election. And I said, well, I don't think we'll have to wait till 2024, Doug. And of course, Doug, he's clued in, but he just sort of smiled and said, well, hopefully not. But I think if you get enough states decertifying, and if some of these charges in the Durham report, which haven't yet surfaced and are due to, that will see a complete change before the end of February. So I think this February, Steve, is going to be monumental and massive.
Tell me about the Ukraine. What are your organization across the globe? I mean, they're gigantic. What are the people in Ukraine saying? How desperate are they for this matter to get de-escalated? Do they want the independence, or do they want Putin? Can you give me some insight on what you're hearing on the ground?
Well, first of all, my members in that region know exactly what this is all about, so they're not actually too bothered. We have members in Taiwan and members in China, and they chat online quite happily because they know what this is all about. They're not living in fear of a nuclear bomb. It's difficult because if we look at our history, when Adolf Hitler's troops in 1941 and 42 went into that part of Russia, they were actually hailed as saviors by many in the Ukrainians who hated Stalin. Well, Putin is not Stalin. Now, there are a lot of people who read the history and feel that way, but I can tell you that a lot of people, also in the Baltic states, if they had to choose between NATO and Putin, they'd choose Putin simply because NATO won't protect them. There's no way that a single American soldier will go to Ukraine. All of the American troops that have just been sent, it's 8,500, by the way, Steve, have gone to Germany, Poland, and Lithuania. They're not gone to Ukraine. The Pentagon will not risk a single soldier's death fighting the Russians. Now, if we know that America's not putting tanks, aeroplanes, and troops into Ukraine, there isn't another European country in the world that will go and fight Russia on its own. Not at all. So what I expect to happen is a gentleman's agreement. I expect the Russian troops to gently walk in. I hope that the mayor of whichever city will shake hands with whoever, and it'll be a nice, peaceful transfer of power. I think it's absolutely of no importance what Biden says. I think Biden's very much on his way out. I think Harris is on her way out, and I think Pelosi's on her way out. I think that the Senate and the Congress are turning. I think there's some dramatic changes occurring there. And in fact, not a million miles away from you are at the moment. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with the senator. There's a certain senator there. I've got my eye on him. And I'm very much looking to the Durham report to come out in February. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to do a podcast, an Intel podcast tonight. I think that Durham report is imminent, and I think it's going to destroy the Biden administration.
You know, I don't think there's much outside influence needed to destroy the Biden administration. They're doing a pretty good job themselves. I mean, it's amazing how these guys continue to step on themselves and cannot find a way to just get our hearts, which doesn't surprise me, because you knew inside that whatever their philosophy was not going to be accepted well by the American public. But man, they're just killing themselves. And I love to watch arrogant people implode. This is one of my greatest enjoyments in life, is when an arrogant person gets knocked down and knocked down and knocked down and out.
Well, we've got to remember that the bad guys are still strong. I mean, we've got something like nearly 100,000 lorries on their way to Canada. 100,000 in a line. I don't know what it is in miles. I was told in European 100 kilometers. I have no idea what that is in miles. I mean, we work by miles. I don't work by kilometers either. But we know there's near on 100,000 trucks on their way to Canada. And we think within 2 to 3 days, there won't be any food left on the shelves in Canada. Now, my point in telling you this is that the truckers got a GoToFundMe, and Canadian people are really behind them and put in 5 million Canadian dollars. Do you know what? All that assets are frozen. Or they can't get their 5 million because the system they used, whatever it was, I can't remember, the GoFundMe, frozen. So the deep state are still very powerful. And I do caution other commentators, particularly American, who start to shout and get excited and lose their breath. And, the war's not won yet. It must take a bit of British reserve and calm down a bit, because the battle is not yet won. The deep state have just frozen $5 million for this day. And luckily, a lot of local people are going to feed these truckers, help them out, support them, because they want to get those lorries into, to Canada to start blockading, because they want to get rid of Trudeau, the leader of that country.
Wow.
So the deep state are still active, and they're active in the banking world. They're active in the political world. They're not active in the military anymore. This is where their base is. Of course, through that, they control mainstream media. But they've lost a lot of their power in Hollywood. Hollywood has seen a lot of these bad guys cleared out.
Absolutely. And I love to see that. I love